Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's edition, we want to get into some previews of Giro d'Italia because it's starting up in Albania here on Friday. So that means that all the riders are already moving over to the Giro d'Italia for 2025 and in the area and getting themselves ready to go for Friday's race. But the big thing to look at when we're talking about the 21 stages of the 25 Giro d'Italia, well, it has to be that the big climbs start after stage 16. Yes, if we look in the first 10 stages, it's littered with mountains all over, but it's not littered with climbing back-to-back stages. It's more of a Giro d'Italia, I think, of one where you need to be a little reserved in the first week. You have to be good, of course, when we're talking about stage 7, when you go up that final 9-kilometer climb, and certainly the last 2.5 kilometers at 9%, that is a GC battle for sure on stage 7. But when we look at that whole 9 stages of the first week of the Giro d'Italia with 2 Monday rest days in, because we're starting on Friday. So you get Monday, this Monday coming up as a rest day, and then of course the following Mondays after that. But when we stay into the first 10 days, we start looking at stage 1. Well, it has some climbs on stage 1, but it's not a climbing summit finish, and it's lumpy and bumpy. So with categories 1s and 3s in there, we know it's a good stage that could be for Visma-Lease bikes, Wout van Aert, right? If Wout van Aert's coming on good form, a lot of you guys will say, oh, Wout van Aert's used up, he hasn't been riding good. Wout van Aert's been pretty solid, and if his form just got a little bit better after the Classics, where we saw him go 4th at Amstel Gold, his last race before he gets ready for the Giro d'Italia, well, if we see that kind of form, and we know we start looking at stage 1 and the GC guys aren't going to battle on stage 1, that means the pace will be brought down just a little bit less, which means Visma-Lease bike might decide to take over the tempo making and see if they can make it a sprint for Wout van Aert or possibly Olaf Koy. Now, will the climbs be a little bit too hard for Olaf Koy? Possibly, but those guys being on the same team, Visma-Lease bike being the team that could control the pace on stage 1 possibly, means that Wout van Aert or Olaf Koy could possibly make it to the finish. Wout van Aert, with any kind of decent form, will be there at the finish to be competing for the stage victory and the pink jersey at the Giro d'Italia this year on stage 1. I don't doubt that at all. So when we start looking over at the GC teams, when we start thinking Primoz Roglič, the Slovenian over there in Bora-Hansgrohe, this is the first 10 stages here to be a little bit calm, with the exception of that stage 2 individual time trial and the stage 10 individual time trial. And then, of course, if you can make up some time on that stage 7 uphill finish, those are 3 days out of 10 where Primoz Roglič has got to go to work. But the rest of the time, I think if Bora-Hansgrohe's Primoz Roglič team is getting all the pressure to control the first week of the Giro d'Italia, if they can get another team like Visma-Lease bikes with Wout van Aert riding with any kind of good form and winning stage 1, that means Visma-Lease bike might start thinking that, well, we can win a bunch of stages with Wout van Aert, right? If he comes in really good, he wins stage 1, Visma-Lease bike might want to control a lot during that first week. Now, everyone has to be careful when we get on the gravel stage of stage 9, because anything can happen on those stages, and any of these lumpy climbing stages, Primoz Roglič has to be careful on, because when we look over at UAE Team Emirates, well, they have multiple numbers over there. Ayuso could be their leader, but it might be Adam Yates. So Primoz Roglič has to figure out right away which of the 2 riders he believes is most important. If he gets into a tactical battle with them, which rider does he believe is the favorite or the stronger of the 2? But it doesn't just end with Adam Yates and Ayuso there at UAE Team Emirates, because Brandon McNulty's on the team, and we all know he can climb in time trial. Does he have that top level form? I can't answer that, but he did look very good at Liège-Bastogne-Liège when he was racing and helping out Tadej Pogačar win there. The next riders, when we look at UAE Team Emirates, Del Toro, the Mexican rider's been winning races already throughout his early career here, and he time trials pretty decent. I've seen him go top 10s when we're talking about at Algarve, and at Trino Adriatico, top 15 there in the individual time trials. So Del Toro, if he does some limitations, time limitations, so he doesn't lose too much time there on the individual time trials of 2 and 10, that means that he all of a sudden could become a threat. So if I'm UAE Team Emirates, I don't want to be over aggressive on the early first week of the Giro. I want to keep my 4 guys, if not 5, because Jay Vine's on there and he can time trial too. So they have 5 guys that can time trial well. And we can, sitting up here right now, none of us would be surprised if Juan Ayuso won the individual time trial, right? He might beat Primoz Roglič on stage 2, and he might beat Primoz Roglič on stage 10, but we have to wait and see because the Slovenian is certainly right now the favorite to win the Giro d'Italia. But with 5 guys from the same team of UAE Team Emirates, if I'm the director sportif over there, I want to keep those guys always careful with how I use their energy, because if I can get 5 guys into stage 16 of the Giro when the climbing really starts, and Primoz Roglič is the outright favorite, possibly even wearing pink already at stage 16 when the mountains really start proper, if he is to lose a lot of his super domestiques over there in Bora-Hansgrohe. Remember, he has Jai Hindley, who won the Giro d'Italia, but has not been showing such kind of form that you would expect him to be up there with the absolute best at the Giro d'Italia. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. Like I said, he won the Giro d'Italia, but we haven't seen him up there performing with Juan Ayuso at that type level, with Adam Yates, with Simon Yates from Visma-Lease bike for quite a while. At last year's Tour de France, Bora-Hansgrohe got it all off with all of their teammates, and they really underperformed in the big mountains. But if Jai Hindley could come in with good form, then of course Primoz Roglič would have help in the mountains, and same goes with Danny Martinez. So over at Bora-Hansgrohe, there's a lot of question marks, right? Will Danny Martinez bring his best form like we've seen in years past at the Giro d'Italia when he helped Egan Bernal win when they were riding for Team Ineos? Will he bring that kind of form, or is he going to bring what we've seen oftentimes where it fluctuates up and down? Remember, Danny Martinez has gone good at the Grand Tours, like the example I just given you, and he's won Algarve, and he's won the Basque Country, so he's capable of riding with the best in the world, but will he bring the best in the world type form? That's what Primoz Roglič has to stress about during the first week of the Giro d'Italia, and certainly by the time we get into stage 16, is how good is Jai Hindley? How good will Danny Martinez be over there at Bora-Hansgrohe? Well, he's got some other help too when we're talking about Pellizzari, but again, it's not status quo 100% reliable like you look over at UAE Team Emirates, where how many times has Del Toro ever really faded? He always is in the picture. Brandon McNulty's always in the picture. Rafael Majka, the super domestique, normally performs, and we just have to go back to the Giro d'Italia last year when he was riding for Tadej Pogačar, where he was always solid at the front. So UAE Team Emirates, along with those riders and Jay Vine, who normally performs solid throughout most of his races, we start looking at Adam Yates and, of course, Juan Ayuso, who stepped up a level this year in 2025. Primoz Roglič has to worry if UAE Team Emirates ride their team tactically correct, and we go into the late final week, the third week here of the Giro d'Italia, with UAE Team Emirates having possibly 5 riders close to the top leaderboard here at the Giro d'Italia. That's the way I would race it if I'm UAE Team Emirates. Save, protect, don't stress about winning stages early, but if you can take them in individual time trials, that's fantastic. If you can take it on stage 7 on the uphill finish where it gets 9%, take it for sure, but do not be over aggressive and put your neck out there and try going for breakaways from 50K out or from 150K out to start losing riders like Brandon McNulty in the first week or the second week of the Giro d'Italia. Keep them safe. Make Bora-Hansgrohe do most of the work, because Primoz Roglič is the absolute favorite. There's no doubt about that, because he beat Juan Ayuso at Catalonia and beat him pretty badly on that last day in Barcelona. So with that in mind, if UAE Team members just say, hey, we're not here to help Bora-Hansgrohe win the Giro d'Italia, they're going to have to do the work. Well, then Primoz Roglič and his director sportifs over at Bora-Hansgrohe, they have to start finding ways to save energy. So that takes me again back to the beginning of this video, where Visma-Lease bike could be the friend, at least for the first part of the week here, when we're talking about through stages 10, that could be the friend for Bora-Hansgrohe to have Visma-Lease bikes, Wout van Aert, start taking race leaders' jerseys early on stage 1. But of course in stage 2, Primoz Roglič still has to unload with his best form possible. So he might be in pink on stage 2. But if he's not, having it over there at Visma-Lease bike might be an ideal scenario for Primoz Roglič if Visma-Lease bike's Wout van Aert is on some good form like we saw just last year at the Volta a España, where he won 3 stages and of course wore the race leader's red jersey there in 2024. So if Wout has that type of form, that might take some pressure off Bora-Hansgrohe. UAE Team members have to be calm, cool, and relaxed. Visma-Lease, the bike, have to hope that Wout van Aert has that good form, because that could secure them possibly a red jersey and some stages throughout the Volta a España. And of course, if Wout isn't on that form, they have Olaf Koy that could win stages too. And if Olaf Koy is not on form and Wout van Aert's not on form, well guys, they have Simon Yates too. Simon Yates could pull out some times here and could be a serious threat on the general classification, because if I've already mentioned his twin brother Adam Yates as being a threat on general classification, well, you know Simon Yates has to be too, because he's a Grand Tour winner of the Volta a España from some years back, 2018 if I believe right, but I'll post it down below if I'm wrong. Either way, though, we have a ton of riders to pay attention, and that's just 3 teams I mentioned. So if we start looking out further than that, well, on who could be exciting here at the Giro d'Italia to watch, well, Michael Storer at Classic des Alpes looked fantastic, and when I was watching previews of that and some shortcuts, Michael Storer would look fantastic, where he was up the road dropping everyone at Classic des Alpes. And remember, Ciccone was at Classic des Alpes, who got second at Liège, best on Liège, and Michael Storer was dropping Ciccone pretty quickly there at Classic des Alpes. So look and see what the young kid over there from Tudor Cycling might do here at the Giro d'Italia. He might surprise all of us. Now, other guys to keep an eye on, well, Ciccone is here too. Coming from second from LBL, like I told you, he might be able to do something for Lidl Trek. And then when we start looking over at Ineos Grenadiers, well, Egan Bernal here's the Colombian, and he has won the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France before, but that was pre his crash in Colombia. Now he's coming back. Hopefully, the Colombian is on fantastic form. When we start looking at their team, Ineos, well, he doesn't have a ton of help backing him up, but he does have our Ensman here. So if Egan Bernal has some top form, he's going to have to race tactically smart, and he's going to have to follow UAE Team Emirates, and of course, Bora-Hansgrohe, and possibly over there at Visma-Lease bikes with Simon Yates. Tons of stuff to pay attention to in the first week, but you got to like and subscribe. Then I'll see you guys on the next edition here real soon, and I'll explain some more details of the Giro d'Italia. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys real soon.